Uh, hi everyone. Welcome to our second Lunch and Learn of this winter. I'm Allison Marchioni. I'm the Programs Director at the Upper Valley Land Trust. Thank you for coming today. I think we have a really interesting presentation for you. Before we get started, I just want to let everyone know that this presentation is being recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel after the fact. So I'm excited to welcome our presenter for today. Our presenter and to welcome you to our presentation, which is emerald ash borers and ash trees in the Upper Valley, specifically at our Old Town Farm property. That's sort of a case study. Today we have consultant forester Neil Lampson, who is UVLT's forester at the Old Town Farm property in Pomfret. Neil is a consultant forester and woods worker from South Pomfret. He retired from the U.S. Forest Service in 2001, where he was a silviculturist throughout his 30-year career. He spent 15 years as a research forester in Parsons, West Virginia, where he investigated hardwood silviculture in the world-renowned, for now, experimental forest. Much of his research was on uneven aged management and crop tree management. He authored or co-authored over 50 scientific articles on hardwood silviculture, including 2 chapters in Silvics of North America. He spent the last 12 years of his career conducting silviculture technology transfer with the state and private branch of the U.S. Forest Service. He conducted training sessions throughout the eastern U.S. and Canada on a wide variety of subjects related to computer software, hardwood and softwood silviculture, and visual aids. So welcome, Neil. We're really happy to have you here today. Just a couple more housekeeping things before we get started. I am going to ask everyone to stay on mute for the presentation so we don't have any disruptive noise or feedback. And if you have questions, which I hope you will, please type them into the chat box. And when the presentation is over, I'll go through the questions and ask them to Neil. So with that, let's get started. Neil?
Are we ready to go?
I think so.
Okay, well, I'm gonna try to, how come, wait a minute. I was trying to shut myself off here so you didn't get distracted by such an ugly thing up in the corner, but that's okay. So, ash management on the Old Town Farm property in Pomfret, Vermont. So the Old Town Farm property is 112 acres that was gifted to the Upper Valley Land Trust in 2020. And you can see it's on the western side of Pomfret there, and in a very wooded section of the town, although the town is about 90% wooded now anyway. We do have a small area of agricultural land to the south side of that, but it's about 4 or 5 acres, and the rest of it is completely forested. No discussion about our present day conditions would be complete without a little bit of pre-colonial history. And from this, I am moving on to my opinion. This is not necessarily an opinion shared by other experts in the field, but it makes sense to me. So the glaciers deposited erratic boulders about 12,000 years ago when they melted. This fellow here wasn't there, of course, at that time, but nevertheless, we do know from our heritage that the Native Americans held white rocks in high esteem. Even to this day, if you talk to some of the old resident Vermonters, they always use a white rock, a quartz rock, to mark corners and other important places on their property. So that's a given. It appears that the Native Americans may have erected standing stones and built stone chambers to mark important solar and lunar events. This is very much in controversy, and that's why I say may have. Everyone has their own explanation about what they see, and let's take a look. There is one standing stone and one prominent white rock on the Old Town Farm, and there are a number of what I call pre-colonial sites, or maybe pre-colonial sites in the area. So here we have the standing stone that is on the Old Town Farm. and the old fossil is there with it. And there you go. Where did that come from? It's you can see it's about maybe 4.5 feet tall. I take no credit for the fact that when I put my hand on that rock, the sun shone on it very nicely, spotlighted me, just the way it is. About a quarter of a mile to the north is another standing stone. This is not on the Old Town Farm. Very interesting. How did that thing, which is about 8 feet tall, get there? Did the glacier deposit that? And did the glacier deposit that flat rock that you see moss covered at the bottom of that, which is about the same size? Or maybe some industrious farmer put it as a corner mark. Over to the west of the town farm is another similar shaped standing stone. Again, placed there by the glaciers complete with rocks at the bottom of it to keep it upright. I'm not sure. There's a lot of investigation and discussion about this, which I'll allude to later on, and you can investigate for yourself. White rocks, as I said, are an important, I think, historical thing that I know the Native Americans were rumored to do that, and they still are today. This site is about a mile from the town farm lot, and it's to the south, and I can't tell you any more than that because I haven't discussed it with the landowner, but I have been there. And I knew about this from the time when I was a child. I used to wander around here barefoot, climb that rock many times. I knew where it was. I never saw what was there. Because if you notice, there's a rock in the back, and that's about 3 feet in diameter, a flat quartz rock. And when you start looking at the quartz rocks, you see that in fact, the boulders up at the top are the ones that are in the main ones in the picture. When you go 30 feet to the south, there are 2 more. Another 30 feet, there are 3. And finally 2 more at another 30 feet that line up perfectly. I'm not sure that the glaciers did that. And I don't know why an industrious farmer would take the time to do that. End of discussion on that. So there are lots of these root cellars, which some people think are stone chambers erected for particular purposes. They were used as root cellars or pig pens or whatever else by the colonial settlers. There's no doubt about it. Who constructed them and why is still up in the air as far as I'm concerned. Because many of these, when you stand in the opening and look out on the 21st of December, you see this. They are in perfect alignment with the winter solstice. Why would a farmer choose to do that? I don't know, but they are that way. Enough of that foolishness. Let's get on to today or the more modern history. The 100-acre lots in Pomfret were surveyed in the 1760s. And here you can see there are about 200 of them. They're about 100 acres or so in size. And they were surveyed in the 1760s. The charter for Pomfret was granted in 1761. And shortly after that, the proprietors, which is another very interesting story. I think we should stop here for a minute and explain what went on then. The town was chartered by the governor of New Hampshire, Mr. Wentworth, and he gave this 6 mile by 6 mile town to 66 proprietors, 66 people who had some political connection, maybe, whatever. Anyway, those 66 people were given one 100-acre lot each. And here you can see that there were 3 divisions in town, the 41, Roman numeral 1, 42, Roman numeral 1. This was in the 1st division. So what they did was they laid out 70 lots, put the names or saved out 4 lots, 1 for the school, 1 for the parsonage, and 2 for the Church of England. And so they took the 66 remaining lots, put their names in a hat, drew out the numbers, and now you own 100 acres in Pomfret, Vermont. This occurred in Pomfret, Connecticut, where all of the proprietors were from that part of the world. So here you have people that now own land that they haven't seen, and they rushed up to the woods and mountains of Vermont and found their lot, and boy, were they happy. So we see that the 2nd division, which occurred a few years later, is labeled here. And those are 18 Roman numeral 2, 17 Roman numeral 2. This is important because if you owned one of the lots by the 1st division and you went up there or hired somebody to go up there and cleared 3 acres of land and put a fence up, you could keep that land. And you had rights to a division of the 2nd or lot in the 2nd division. So it was a pretty good deal. So this happened in 1763 when the first owner of the first proprietors made it. By 1771, we see that lot 18 in the 2nd division was pitched by Nathaniel Lyon in the right of John Chamberlain, who was granted the lot next to it in 1761. So John Chamberlain hired Nathaniel Lyon to put a 3-acre plot or a 3-acre field, or cleared 3 acres, and now he has 2 lots. And the lot was purchased in 1778 by a blacksmith from Woodstock, Connecticut. Hello. And then on it changed hands again until in 1792, we see the records showing that it was abandoned by the owner, Nathaniel Washburn, but he stayed in Pomfret, even though he abandoned his 100-acre lot. We know he stayed in Pomfret because the birth records show him having 5 more children in Pomfret. So whoever it was that owned the land went at it in vigorous fashion. And you can see here that we have somebody with oxen pulling a stump away, and in the background you see a fence made out of stumps, and there's the split rail fence, which had to be made some sort of a fence in order to pitch the land. Burning the brush, the fellow in the foreground with a little kid watching is drilling a hole in the stump, and he's going to put gunpowder in there and blow it up so the oxen can haul it away. And that's what happened in Pomfret for the next few years, until they ended up with something that looks about like this. And this was an agricultural community, and the landscape was about 80% cleared of the forest by the mid-1800s. Here we see a map, one of the older maps of town that was made in 1869. You can see that we have a very complete road system now, and we have 15 school districts. Each of the school districts had a schoolhouse so that no child had to walk more than 1 mile to get to school. No busing back then, you walked to school. And so we see that over on the left side is district number 11, And in 1869, we see that the town farm was right there on the road coming off from Wild Apple Road, which is right where the old town farm lot is today. So the town farms were typical means by which the communities provided for their poor. We do a similar thing now, only we just give people money and maybe put them up in a motel room or whatever else. In that day, if you were on the welfare rolls, you were expected to go to the town farm and work. And the farm was not necessarily self-supporting, but certainly you can see here that they were making maple syrup, which was a cash crop, which helped support the town farm. And we know this to be the way it was from both from our local historians and our local residents telling us things that have been handed down to them. And when you look up in the woods here on the town farm site today, you see that on the southern edge along near the road is the cellar hole for the house. And there are foundations or remnants of two different sugar houses in the sugar bush. I labeled this the 1869 sugar bush because this is where all of the old big trees and remnants of them are. It's pretty clear that this area in the middle was left forested. The rest of the town farm lot was cleared for pastures or agricultural use. So we have a remnants of the old forest in there. Many of the old trees, most of the old trees have passed away, but there's still some large remnants of the 3-foot sugar maples that were the sugar bush. There's no doubt about it that the sugar bush itself was also pastured, and the cattle and sheep that went in there, of course, could eat all of the brush and stuff and keep that down so it was easier to gather the sap. So enough of the history. Let's talk about white ash management on the old town farm. No discussion about white ash today is complete without calling on this little critter here. This is the emerald ash borer. It's about 1 inch long. So it's an invasive insect from Asia that is killing ash trees in North America. It was first found in 2002 in Michigan. They suspect it was hidden in wood that pallet material and that kind of stuff that still had the bark on it that came from China, I suppose. So China gave us the flu or the pandemic here, and they also gave us a nice insect. So it was first detected in 2002. In 2021, the red dots show you the places that it has been found. Spread very rapidly in 20 years all across the eastern United States. Notice particularly that out in Colorado, there's emerald ash borers. How did a little insect that's only 1 inch long, that's a beetle, that is not like a butterfly that flies on the wind, that just kind of bzzz along a little bit and then goes to the ground, how could that thing get to Colorado? Well, we look at the life history of the insect and we see that starting at the top in May and through September, the borers mate and the female lays some eggs in the bark. Then those eggs hatch through March. In April, the larvae go into the pupal stage and they hatch in late May. And so from May until April, well, for the whole growing season, if the bark is on the piece of wood and you move that piece of wood, the little bug comes out in late May and says, "Where am I now? oh, I'm going to find an ash tree. And it does. And it does it all over again. So the EAB spread was spread aided by firewood, up to a year of just firewood piled like this. If it had beetles in it or the larvae in it, they could still be going. And of course, long distance hauling with logs. Once that the emerald ash borer hit a place further west from here, before we knew much about how to control it or what to do to slow the spread of it, the loggers or the landowners and loggers or whatever just went wild, cut all the ash trees that were saleable, moved them wherever they wanted to, and of course helped spread the bug. So this is the little critter. It's only an inch long, lives between the bark and the wood, and makes these S-shaped serpentine galleries that you see there. And that doesn't do much harm to the tree, one of those little bugs. I mean, what harm? We get every year, trees get more damage than that from ice storms and whatever. But if there are thousands and thousands of those little critters that seemingly have no natural enemies in this country, they very quickly will girdle the tree and it dies. And your ash forest ends up looking like this. So the emerald ash borer is in Vermont. The red places, like up in the middle of the state in Orange County, are places that we have found the bug. The brownish areas and then the yellow areas are a area that is up to 5, 10 mile, 20, whatever. I'm not sure what the designation is, but that is, there may be emerald ash borers there because they spread and you don't notice it until a tree dies, and they start at the top of the tree and work their way down. It takes several years to actually become noticeable. So it's probable, there's a low probability, but it's possible that the emerald ash borer is where those yellow circles are. You can see where the old town farm is. They are possibly on our doorstep, or far as we know, there might even be some emerald ash borers here now. Have no fear, help is on the way. So I'm going to borrow some information now from Professor D'Amato, who gave a very good presentation 2 weeks ago on the ecological, silvicultural, cultural considerations for ash preservation. This is available. I'll have the sources for that at the end of the presentation. So what he says is that there are chemical approaches that do work. Emamectin benzate is a trunk injection. It lasts for 3 years. There's no documented aquatic or pollinator impacts. Costs about $150 a tree, and it is effective on little trees and big trees. You see down in the bottom photo, that's a research, sort of a research study, case study. The tree on the left was treated with this chemical, the tree on the right was not. And so it's an effective means to control the beetle in individual trees. We are experimenting with biological approaches. There are 3 parasitoids that have demonstrated effectiveness in reducing the populations. 2 of them work on the larvae, and the 3rd works on the egg. And they've been released already. As over on the last picture, you can see where the folks are working with that. One of the problems with that, or one of the opportunities we have to overcome, is that these guys only live where there are emerald ash borers. So you have to have the bug present, or the larvae or the eggs present, for these guys to do their thing. So it's not like a preventative thing, it's a thing to try to slow the progress down. On the silvicultural side, the only hope that we have for right now is, as opposed to what happened out through the Midwest, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, all of those places where there was lots of ash trees, they simply cut all of the saleable ash before the bug got there, or as soon as the bug got there. Now, what we're seeing now is that the best hope for ash is to have harvest of ash trees that will recruit a new generation of ash and leave some mature trees. So that's our approach that we're considering on the Old Town Farm lot. Recruiting the new ash is selective removal. This is what Tony has said, is that selected removal of the overstory ash by either the beetle or beetle motivated harvesting doesn't make enough light to recruit the ash. So we have to make some bigger openings rather than just taking out individual trees here and there as the bug does. So we want to use group selection or seed tree or some sort of a system that makes more light, but includes mature ash retention. And we'll get into this in a bit, why that's important. So leaving the ash to linger is what Tony is suggesting, is that we prioritize larger diameter female trees. Ash has male and female trees. So we want to pick the really healthy female trees. There is some evidence that there is some resistance. Not all of the trees are killed. It appears that some of them can withstand the attack of the emerald ash borer and keep going. So we want to see if we can find some of those trees, and those are the ones that we call lingering. He makes a very good statement, though. It says there's 0 lingering ash are immune to the chainsaw. You can't, well, I'll save my opinions to later. So multiple age and size classes makes it a good program to start thinking about chemical control or biological control for the bug. So off to the Old Town Farm site and what we think we can do in the next few years before the bug gets here. First of all, we are absolutely following the slow to spread guidelines. Any harvested wood will not be moved in more than a mile or 2 from this site. I guarantee you that. And you as landowners or people that would buy firewood, make sure that you know where that wood is coming from and that it's not moved from an area that is known to have the beetle. Keep it local. Secondly, we want to partner with the university and state personnel. It's important that we survey and detect the EAB. We'll put some purple traps out maybe. Certainly we'll be out in the woods looking all the time for the bug. Purple traps are the ones that they hang in the trees, and they're attractant to the bugs, to the EAB, and you can find if they're there with those purple traps. I think we should have some on the Old Town Farm. I also would like to offer the Old Town Farm property for research studies. If any of the folks that are releasing the little parasitoids want to have a good place that's in front of the known areas for the emerald ash borer, I think this would be a perfect place for it. So the other thing that we're doing, that we're recommending or thinking about or formulating a plan for, is to promote ash regeneration. First thing we have to do is to know where the ash trees are. We need to locate all of the ash trees. And then we need to find the female ones and locate a male tree that's close enough to it, both of them very healthy, so that we have pairs of vigorous white ash trees. And then we can talk about where to put an opening in order to maximize ash regeneration. If you just go in and make an opening without knowing where the female trees are, you could inadvertently cut a lot of the seed producers. So then we would harvest in these group selection openings, retaining pairs of ash trees as lingering trees, and carefully monitor the ash regeneration that's will be developing. I also think it's important that we might identify candidate white ash trees for chemical injection. This, of course, is to be determined, I guess. I'm not sure what the feeling of the folks that own the property would, but that's certainly an option that we need to discuss. The chemicals this day and age have, rightly so, gotten a pretty bad reputation, as some of the pesticides that we put on just don't know when to stop killing. And so they kill things that we don't want killed, including people. So that's something that needs to be discussed and considered, but I would certainly think we could find some trees that were worthy to be saved. So the 3A thing on our plan is to locate all of the ash trees. I have done that. I have GPSed all of the ash trees on the Old Town Farm site, and this is what our map looks like for them guys. Last summer, there was no seed produced, so I couldn't find the females. This summer, I hope we have some seed so that we can find the female trees. There is a difference, of course, in the blossoms that come out in the springtime, but they're very difficult to see way up in the top of a tree, although I'll be out looking for them. But the best way to do is to wait for the seed to fall later in the summer. And in a good seed year, certainly, there's no problem determining where the female trees are. So that part is done already. In this year, what I would like to do is to coordinate with the state and university personnel. I want to have all of the folks that know what's going on with ash to look at our harvest plan and see what we're doing and make sure we're doing the right thing. I also want to have a discussion about the parasitoids. If folks are looking for a place to release these wasps, I'll carry them into the woods and let them go. We need to locate the female ash trees, as I explained it already, and then start looking to see where we may be putting openings in. Probably won't do any harvesting until winter of 22-23. Certainly not going to do any until we find where the female ash trees are and get a consensus of what we need to be doing and make sure that we're doing the right thing on this property. So there's more information out there, and this will be available on your on the YouTube, but the Urban and Community Forestry Program has Professor Amato's talk, as well as other good things. Google Vermont invasives, and you come up with all of the information that's there on the emerald ash borer. If you're interested in the pre-colonial times and that kind of part of our history, Northern Woodlands back in 2013 had a very nice article about that. And there's also the New England Antiquities Research Association. And these are the fellows that or the people that are promoting many of these artifacts as pre-colonial construction. They do not expect to chat with the state archaeologist or the Vermont Historical Society about this issue and come away being encouraged that it's pre-colonial. They are pretty well set on the fact that there's not enough evidence that any of these stone structures or things that went on around the quartz rocks support any real evidence there to support pre-colonial activities. Each to his own. It's a free country, and that's where we are. So with that, I can turn it back to our host.
All right, fantastic. Thank you for that presentation, Neil. If people have questions, again, please put them into the chat and we will read through them starting now. It looks like we have one question here. So Tom says, I had thought perhaps wrongly that female and male ash trees didn't need to be paired. I thought male ash trees could support multiple female ash trees. What do you think about that?
Well, they're nasty little things, that's for sure. But yeah, they can. But my theory on the thing is that I would rather make sure that the ash female trees have enough male trees to make them happy. And it's usually about a 1-to-10 ratio for males to females. So I think, you know, that's true. They one female can be happy with one male or several. Thank you.
Any other questions from our audience today? I'm fascinated by the idea of the parasitoids and how much do you think that would work? I know it's worked for other invasive insects.
Well, it appears that the parasitoids are the native way that the emerald ash borer is held in check in China. So it only makes sense that if we could get things regulated a little bit and get the numbers so that the wasp could handle it. The problem right now is that it's the scale is tipped toward the emerald ash borer so much that you know, you'd have to release swarms and swarms of these insects, and they'd be really happy because they could find lots of places to lay their eggs and lots of little larvae to lay their eggs into. But it seems that when you're in this epidemic stage, it's not as easy as you might think.
We have a couple more questions from the audience. How young of an ash tree is at risk? Any evidence on age or diameter size?
Yes, when the trees get to be about 2 inches in diameter, the bug hits them. So smaller ones are not attacked by the emerald ash borer. They don't lay their eggs in the cambium of those or in the bark of those trees.
Is there any other way to tell male trees from the female trees?
I think so, but I don't know it. I used to do training sessions with my silviculture work. I recall one distinctly. This was before the emerald ash borer. But I recall distinctly that there was a forester in Maine that when we were working in a hardwood forest area, he says, well, there's a male one and there's a female one. And he could tell by the bark characteristics which were which. I cannot. And maybe after finding a bunch of female trees with seeds on them, I might be able to learn that. So evidently he was confident of that. But The only way to tell is there's a difference in the flower, and there's obviously a difference because the seeds are produced on the females.
Mm-hmm. Andy wants to know, can you describe a little bit what the proposed treatments will look like? For example, the size or the timing?
The openings that we would cut have to be at least 1/4 of an acre in size. That's according to all of the guidelines that we can come up with. So there would be probably irregular shaped because we'll be maximizing the potential to get regeneration, and it doesn't necessarily follow a square or circle or whatever else. I don't know for sure where there will be. I know that our ash trees are concentrated over on the west side, and that's where we may start, but there are ash trees scattered throughout on the eastern and northern part of the property as well. So we'll be looking at all of those, but what we would do is essentially clear cut except for the ash lingering trees.
Mm-hmm.
Does that answer the question?
I think so. Is there any way to take female ash trees that survive an emerald ash invasion and plant those seedlings? So I think that question maybe is about, is there any kind of built?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I know that the folks in Michigan, where the outbreak started, have looked at the stands that have been subjected to the borer for at least 20 years, and they're finding some live trees left. And I'm sure that they are working to get some seed from those survivors to plant and hope for the best on that. But that, of course, is something that does take a bit of time to do and stuff. But I do know that they are looking all across the range of ash. I know that the foresters out there, the state folks particularly, are looking for surviving ash trees. Unfortunately, we made a mistake when, or we, as a professional forester community, I think we made a mistake that we didn't realize that we should leave enough trees for the regeneration. We were just concentrating on saying, okay, if the tree is over 20 inches in diameter, it's not going to increase in value much more. Pop that thing out of there now, leave some smaller ones so they'll grow into more profitable size, and don't worry about all the firewood sized trees that are smaller. They're going to dry anyway, take them out. So it wasn't the best recommendation.
Mm-hmm. Do you have suggestions for how to prioritize trees for chemical treatment?
Not at this point. I do not. I've just been exposed to it a couple of weeks ago in detail when Professor Amato told us about that, and I'll be chatting with him, and we will. My first reaction would be the very healthiest, best trees, the ones that are the biggest and the best now. Those are the ones that I would like to save. Not only from the standpoint of the ability to produce seeds and have the next generation coming, but they're nice looking. We might as well save the good lookers.
Excellent. That looks like it's all the questions, unless anyone else wants to submit one right now. So thank you, Neil, for joining us today and for the presentation. I do just want to let everyone know that we do have another Lunch and Learn coming up on March 17th. It is myself, a representative from NOFA, Vermont, and a member, Chief Don Stevens of the Abenaki Nation, talking about the Abenaki Land Link program that UVLT has been participating in, where we grow vegetables from native seeds and give them back to the tribe. So that is March 17th. I'm putting a link to sign up in the chat, and then also you can find information about that Lunch and Learn on our website calendar page. Someone asked if the slides will be available. I can put them up if Neil wants to share them, and then they would be available on our website. So thank you all for joining us today, and hopefully I'll see you at the next Lunch and Learn.